If I stop uploading here, you can find me via my website in the description below. Chapter 1. 1478 Blood Feed. We sure found the right person. Brother Han, listen well. Yan Li's face brightly lit up upon hearing his reply, and she began to speak to him in voice transmission. As Han Li attentively listened to her, a pensive expression appeared on his face. As Yuan Yao quietly stood at the side, her eyes glistened while she looked at Han Li's face. When Yan Li finished her voice transmission, Han Li let out a long sigh and said, "This technique will do. However, I fear that I'll only be able to do this inside the infernal river with the help of you too." Yan Li giggled and said, "That's right. The yin qi in the infernal river only resonates with pure yin qi in our bodies. Of course, the ghost matron can also do this, but she won't remove the mark I placed down." Han Li nodded and said, "Good. But I have to ask, how do you want me to help you?" Yuan Yao slowly said, "I suppose it would be impossible to make the ghost matron completely abandon us, but it would be possible to have her postpone consuming us. So long as we can delay it until after we enter the infernal river, we will have an opportunity to escape their control." Han Li's brows stirred and he didn't immediately answer. He knew the two would go into more detail. As a result, Yan Li immediately continued. "The ghost matron and the other monarchs view Han Li's assistance with great importance. So long as we leak out that we were old friends of deep importance and Brother Han openly displays affection towards little sister Yuan in front of the ghost matron, she would temporarily spare us even if she had some doubts. Be affectionate towards Lady Yuan." Shocked Han Li quickly shot a glance at Yuan Yao. Despite the many years she cultivated, when Yuan Yao heard Yan Li's words, her face flushed with a deep red, revealing a lovely appearance. "If it's only with words, I will do it. However, the ghost matron and Mu Qing have already come to some sort of agreement. I don't know how effective this will be," Han Li warned. There was something like that. Yan Li's face slightly changed and she wryly laughed. Yuan Yao's expression faintly changed and she wryly laughed. "If that's true, there is some risk. But apart from this plan, we have nothing else. We'll only be able to rely on our luck." And how heavily the demon monarchs view Brother Han. After some thought, Yan Li solemnly said, "Let's go with that. Fellow Taoist Han has confirmed our words, so we may as well speak of more serious things. We'll have the ghost matron believe that Brother Han is infatuated with junior martial sister Yuan. In this case, the ghost matron should be somewhat apprehensive and shouldn't dare to harm us. In addition, the ghost matron knows a bit about our history, so fellow Taoist Han's disguise as a flying spirit tribe member must be broken." Han Li shook his head and said, "My disguise as a flying spirit tribe member was only temporary to begin with. I don't care if the ghost matron knows or not. They don't care about my identity as a flying spirit tribe member, but the divine devilbane lightning I carry." Yan Li proposed, "In that case, we're relieved. There is no time to lose. Once the ghost matron emerges from seclusion, let's act according to plan, so long as she doesn't touch on our true plan. Fellow Taoist Han may as well reveal a few details about our time in the mortal world. After all, lies that contain truth are the most convincing." Han Li lowered his head in thought and felt that there were no problems. He calmly answered, "Yes, I can do that. I will do my best to assist you." The two felt great relief when they heard this, and they couldn't help but look at Han Li with a close attitude. The three then chatted about the particulars a bit more, and the two women said their farewells. Even as the ghost matron was still in seclusion, the two women didn't dare to be careless and hastily returned to the deepest level of the earth abyss. When Han Li saw the two travel off in yin winds, soon disappearing from sight, Han Li suddenly shook his sleeve. A light flashed from his body, taking the form of a 3-meter-tall peacock with bright, beautiful feathers. It unfolded its wings, and rainbow light glared, causing the nearby space to hum. The rainbow light swept up in a wind, and the peacock turned vague, immediately turning into a rainbow mist, directly heading to the heart of the mountain range. Not long after, Han Li appeared back in his cave residence and closed the door to his seclusion room once again. 2 months later, a ball of black wind directly made its way to Han Li's residence and bluntly dropped down. Then it vanished, as if it sank into the mountain. The few restrictions Han Li placed down didn't have any effect on it. After 2 hours, the gate to Han Li's residence opened and the black yin wind flew out, flying into the distant sky. A short time after, the gate slowly closed. As time quickly passed, the mountain was covered twice over in snow. Winter had passed twice. On the seventh level of the Earth Abyss, dark chi gathered there the densest. There were a few powerful Earth Abyss demons that have yet to gain sentience, but the 4 demon monarchs held them in fear regardless. Even the white-haired beauty that was particularly fond of yin qi was unwilling to establish her cultivation palace on this floor and instead established it on the floor above. But one day on the 7th level, countless demons arrived from a desolate grey desert in dense formations of untold size. Most of them consisted of a few common low-grade Earth Abyss demons, and there were a few that appeared odd. A portion of them was covered in a large yin wind, faintly revealing countless ghost images. Furthermore, they wailed with ghostly howls, causing the other demons to distance themselves in fear. Above these yin winds floated the white-haired beauty, and behind her stood 8 black figures. They were all 10 meters tall and donned an especially sinister set of armor. There were a few that were unharmed and those that wielded blades. As for their faces, they were blurred and couldn't be seen. Near the 8 black figures, there were 2 beautiful women floating at their side. They were Yuan Yao and Yan Li, and outside the scope of the black winds, there was an arrangement of puppets of various heights and styles. Most of them were carved out of claw and were 10 meters tall. Their bodies flickered with a grey-white and brown light, but they were clearly carved with crudeness. A small portion of them was carved out of black-green wood, and there others were metal-attributed puppets shining with black light. These puppets were refined meticulously regardless of their exterior material and had a talisman formation on their surface. However, the most eye-catching of the puppets was a purple-red 100-meter-tall puppet that had 6 eyes. This was the colossal purple blood puppet that was refined underneath Dijue's blood flame palace. However, this puppet now appeared tens of times smaller, and it no longer appeared as fearsome as before. On the shoulders of the purple blood puppet stood 2 crimson-robed men with their hands behind their back. And at the very front of the puppets and demons, others flew high in the air. A man entirely wrapped in a black cloak were among them. He was the most mysterious of the 4 demon monarchs, Liu Zhu. Astonishingly, a 3-meter-wide eyeball floated above his head and flickered with grey light. Not far away from Liu Zhu floated a huge golden flower. Mu King stood above it and looked up the sky with a raised head. Standing at her side was a golden ape wearing swords behind his back and had bright, cold eyes. Beneath them floated over 100 high-grade demons with solemn expressions in half-demon form. And at the ape's side there was an azure-robed youth with his arms crossed, watching everything in silence. He was Han Li, who had been summoned by force after spending several years in cultivation. At that moment he was looking at the puppets and demons around him. His face was expressionless, but his heart felt quite shaken. From the number of low-grade demons, they must have represented most of the power the demon monarchs controlled in the Earth Abyss. Besides the demons, the ghosts in the black wind and the myriad of puppets were clearly the strongest forces among them. These forces must have taken the demon monarchs several hundreds of years to gather. Their willingness to spend such strength illustrated their determination to succeed in the infernal river. It was unknown what the area contained, but it caused them to risk everything. As Han Li inwardly pondered, he saw Liu Zhu move, and his cold voice commanded Fairy Mu, "The time has come. Quickly offer the blood feed and advance the last blood offering." When Mu Qing heard this, she nodded and waved below her. The several figures flew out from high-grade demons. Each one had bare hands, but had several blood-red pouches at their waist. In the blink of an eye, they flew high into the air and grabbed their pouches, shaking them down into the air. As a series of pops sounded crimson, light flashed. A dozen streams of blood rivers shot out from the pouches. A dense mist of putrid blood chi suddenly scattered and filled the air. The blood rivers condensed in mid-air and seemed to concentrate together as if they were alive, turning into a 150-meter-wide blood ball. At that moment, Mu Qing stepped on her golden flower, and a black formation suddenly flashed from it. Her figure promptly vanished. In the next moment, the huge blood ball flickered with black light, and Mu Qing reappeared near it. She wore a sullen expression and raised her hand. Suddenly, a small black vial was summoned into the air and flew up to the blood ball. Forming an incantation gesture, the black vial spun, and its lid vanished. The vial released several fist-sized black-red objects, blurring into the blood ball and disappearing without a trace. Chapter 1. 1479 Voidfright Devil. After the blood ball absorbed these black-red items, the blood scent in the air vanished and was replaced with a dense fragrance. The demons below became restless. The high-grade demons were better off. Although their minds were dulled and their desires rampant, they managed to control themselves. The lower-grade, less intelligent demons all appeared starved and crazed. As for the ghosts in the black wind and the puppets, they seemed unscathed. Suddenly a cold snort sounded from the air. A wave of breath-freezing cold descended from the air, covering their entire surroundings in the blink of an eye. The demons promptly shivered, and a trace of their desires vanished. This was an immense spiritual pressure emitted by Liu Zhu, who already anticipated this would happen. When Han Li felt this, his heart trembled. Of the body integration stage beings he's seen before, Liu Zhu was the strongest among them. Is it possible he is at the peak of body integration stage? Han Li inwardly muttered to himself and resolved himself to never get in his way. With his abilities, he might have a chance at escaping from the other demon monarchs, but when he faced Liu Zhu, he stood no chance. At that moment, Mu Qing stood in front of the huge ball of fragrant blood and began to mutter an incantation. The other high-grade demons began to flee downward as if they were running for their lives. At nearly the same moment, the blood ball let out a muffled explosion, causing the nearby space to fluctuate. Balls of silver clouds began to form in the air, and they began to spiral, turning into a huge vortex. The vortex was nearly 30 meters wide and contained roiling silver mist. It grew increasingly brighter before it let out a series of ruptures as if it were about to tear through space. Han Li's expression stirred, and he narrowed his eyes as he looked at the air. A trace of blue light flickered from his eyes. The others didn't notice, but Han Li was able to see the vortex's interior clearly with his bright sight spirit eyes. In the deepest point of the vortex, the silver mist began to compress and wrinkle like paper as it violently shook. The strange sound of violently fluctuating space burst out. Suddenly, glass-like cracks mixed with the sounds of explosions, and Han Li narrowed his eyes. The space within the vortex ruptured and black light flashed within it. Suddenly, a furry silver arm suddenly stretched out from it and began to swipe several times through the air, and soon a similar arm appeared next to it. Two jet-black fingernails struck out from the huge silver hands as they attempted to stretch open the black light too, create a larger hole. The space within 300 meters began to shatter in tiny pieces. The silver vortex wailed, turning into specks of silver starlight before disappearing. In its original spot was a black hole that appeared 10 times larger. The pair of huge hands connected to the edge of the hole was still. At that same moment, a pair of huge green eyes glinted from the dark. Apart from the 4 demon monarchs, everyone who saw this felt their blood run cold. Mu Qing's expression sank, and the black light formation underneath her flickered, vanishing from her position next to the blood ball. A short moment later, she reappeared in front of her golden ape, and her expression faintly relaxed. The sounds of rumbling repeatedly sounded out from the large black hole. When Han Li heard this, he was greatly surprised, but when he looked around, he was startled. When the nearby demons heard this strange scream, their bodies began to sway. The lower-grade demons powerlessly fell to the ground, but the higher-grade demons managed to remain standing. Even the 4 demon monarchs erected flashing light from their bodies to resist the effects. As for Han Li, he was entirely unaffected by this. He was amazed by this result, but this also drew the attention of the 4 monarchs. The white-haired woman yelped and her lips curled as she thought of something. As for Liu Zhu, he coldly shouted, "Don't be surprised. This youth has a personal magic treasure crafted from divine, devil-bane lightning, and he hasn't stayed in the earth abyss for long. Since his body isn't corrupted by dark aura, it isn't odd he isn't scared by the Voidfright devil's scream." When the white-haired woman heard this, she wore an expression of enlightenment, and she turned silent. When Mu Qing and the 2 crimson-robed men glanced at Han Li with a changed expression, they also didn't speak. When Han Li heard the name Voidfright Devil, he frowned. He hadn't heard of its name before, but since it was able to tear through space, it wasn't something to be trifled with. Could it be a true spirit-grade existence, although the demon monarchs appeared serious? They didn't view with much fear. As Han Li remained baffled, the pair of silver arms at the edge of the black circle withdrew at lightning speed, and the demonic eyes in the hall gradually became clearer. A strange, huge creature slowly moved closer, revealing its true appearance. Han Li was startled at a glance. The monster was a silver skull that was over 100 meters large, with decayed skin and dead inch-long hair. There was a green eye half protruded from its forehead. and its long mouth was filled with tiny teeth of incredible sharpness. Its nose and eyes were pitch black, completely absent of anything there. But what was most frightening was how the skull had no body. It merely had a pair of furred arms stretching out from its ears as it floated with faint silver light. So that's a Voidfright devil. No wonder they're so scared. Although Han Li saw many demons, devils, and ghosts in the past, none were as grotesque as this monster. It was truly a chilling sight. After the monster floated to the front of the black hole, it landed on top of the blood ball and its eyes flickered. The 4 demon monarchs and their myriads of subordinates watched silently. They had used the blood feed to attract it and tear open space. At that moment, the low-grade demons had begun to crawl up from the ground as the Voidfright demon had ceased yelling. However, they were still fearful and didn't dare to make any noise. As for the 4 demon monarchs, they looked at this monster with a solemn calm. The huge head let out a low groan and opened its mouth wide, spitting out a silver mist to wrap around the blood ball and take it into its mouth. With a gust of wind, the blood ball entered its mouth. Suddenly light glowed from the devil, and it turned a bright red, turning into a similar color as the blood feed. It let out several muffled belches from its mouth, and its huge head shook several times. Soon after, it turned around into the black hole and disappeared in an instant. The Voidfright devil actually left. The 4 demon monarchs took no further action. They simply remained high in the air near the black hole. When Han Li saw this, he revealed his astonishment from his eyes, feeling somewhat at a loss. But then Liu Zhu faintly said, "Enough. With the Voidfright demon assisting us in tearing open a spatial tear, we're halfway into the infernal river. Fellow Taoist Mu, let's enter first and link the space to the infernal river, allowing Dishui's and fellow Taoist Lan's armies to enter smoothly." Mu Qian nodded and then shouted, "Yes, fellow Taoist Liu Zhu. Fellow Taoist Han Jinling, follow me in." "Yes," the golden ape promptly replied and quickly bowed. Startled, Han Li soon let out a wry laugh and quickly flew off. Originally, the demon monarchs planned on using the blood feed to lure the Voidfright devil into appearing and tear open a spatial tear, thereby granting them access to the infernal river. But from how smoothly the demon monarchs conducted themselves, it appears this wasn't the first time they've done this. And through some unknown ability, the Voidfright devil had disappeared, but the spatial tear remained. Liu Zhu and Mu Qing blurred, quickly entering the black hole. As the golden ape forced a smile and watched Han Li could only force himself to follow. After he approached the edge of the black hole, Han Li sensed powerful spatial fluctuations pulsing out from it. He only noticed that the spatial tear was quite different from others he's seen in the past. It was more like a huge tunnel that reached into the distance. The darkness deep inside the hole would occasionally boom with muffled explosions. Liu Zhu and Mu Qing were flying forward ahead of them at a slow and careful pace. Han Li and the golden ape promptly trailed behind them. The black tunnel wasn't very long. The party only flew for 3 kilometers before they reached the end. Silver mist roiled in front of them, blocking the way. Liu Zhu stared at the roiling grey mist and said, "We've arrived. The Voidfright devil should be sleeping. After we return from the infernal river, we'll still have time to block half of the passage with ease." "Fellow Taoist, Mu Qing, could you tell me how long the blood feed will keep him asleep?" Mu Qing confidently said, "Don't worry. I put in the greatest effort of collecting the blood feed and refined it in accordance to your formula. It took me many years of effort." Liu Zhu nodded. "That will do. This Voidfright devil may be a spatial devil, but it isn't sentient. It only acts on instinct. But having previously consumed blood feed a dozen times before, and having consumed the myriad-year-old intoxication medicine in this blood feed, it should be asleep for at least several months. So long as it doesn't wake, we'll be able to move unimpeded and we'll have enough time to make it back from the infernal river. In fact, if not for the devil appearing at our earth abyss, we would have never discovered the infernal river. However, if Brother Liu Zhu hadn't heard of the infernal river, we wouldn't have taken such a huge risk and enter this dangerous place." Mu Qing chuckled. Liu Zhu snorted and said, "Nevertheless, you are all interested in the infernal river god. I hardly needed to convince you. Now is not the time to speak of this. Start on opening up the passage." Chapter 1, 1480. The Infernal River Restriction. Mu Qing smiled and she flipped her hand, producing 3 sparkling blood-red pearls, each the size of a thumb. Liu Zhu shook her shoulders and black light flickered. Another 2 arms emerged from his back. One of the arms was holding a triangular black badge, while his other arm held a blue textile shuttle. With his original arms grasped in an incantation gesture, the air crackled, and a black beam of light shot out from his mouth into the silver mist. Boom! The silver mist immediately began to collapse upon contact with the black beam, resulting in a series of hums sounding from the impact. Marking raised her hand when she saw this. The 3 blood-red pearls shot out in a line, turning into crimson fireballs. After 3 world-shaking booms, the silver mist and 3 head-sized crimson flames erupted and began to disperse. As the silver mist clashed against the black light and crimson flames, the passage began to sway. Standing behind them, Han Li couldn't help but change his expression. Although he experienced the collapse of a spatial tear several times before and lived through the passage of a spatial node, it didn't mean he was confident in escaping a spatial tear collapse. In the past, he only survived by luck. Apart from existences at True Spirit or Grand Ascension stage, none dared to ignore spatial-type dangers. At that moment, Liu Zu's new arms began to move. The triangular badge vibrated and released countless crimson balls of lightning and fire, smashing down on the mist. From the shuttle-type magic treasure, it turned into a blue streak in a hum. Mu King shook her sleeve, releasing countless green streaks. Afterwards, the 3 attacks joined in and forced the silver mist to gradually collapse. When the silver mist was pushed by 30 meters, it eventually let out a world-shaking tremble and completely disappeared. The barrier to the space was struck open, and another passage appeared. Han Li blinked and could see what laid past the opening. A faint white light flickered without end, and an icy wind blew towards them from it. Even when he was protected by spiritual light, Han Li shivered as the icy wind blew past him. The coldness of the wind penetrated the light and touched his body directly. If he didn't cultivate the 5 ice flames in his body, he would have suffered quite a bit. Fortunately, the winds only blew for an instant and soon subsided. He let out a long sigh. Liu Zu looked at the hole and a glint flickered from his eyes. His body blurred as she shot forward. At that same time, he said, "The passage is open. Call for the other fellow Taoists to enter. I'm going to take a look first at the outside." Before they completely heard what he said, he had already entered the white light outside. Mu Qing frowned and she commanded without turning around Jin Ling, "Call for Di Shui and fellow Taoist Lan to march their forces. I'm going to bring fellow Taoist Han inside." "Yes, master," the golden ape replied. He turned around and shot off in a golden streak. Han Li then silently flew after Mu Qing to the exit. A quarter-hour later, Han Li's surroundings lit up and he appeared in another space. However, the scene was much to Han Li's surprise. A kilometer away, he saw an expanse of white water blocking the path. As the white water was cloudy, it was difficult to see how far it reached. Icy winds brushed past the surface of the water. Strangely enough, the surface of the water was smooth as a mirror, without a single flaw, as if it were completely still. Even as such strong winds blew, Liu Zu floated not far away from the surface of the water and looked ahead in solemn silence. Han Li let out a long sigh and muttered, "So this is the infernal river." Mu Qin indifferently said, "That's right. To pass this water shroud into the infernal river, we'll need to draw the support of your divine Devilbane lightning." "This junior won't hold back," Han Li respectfully replied. Mu Qin nodded and thought to say something else when Liu Zu suddenly reached out his hand in the direction of the water's surface. Suddenly, a large black appeared in the air and grabbed downward. But when the large hand arrived 10 meters away from the ice, countless ice streaks crashed out from the ice. As the sounds of space tore the ice streaks, tore thousands of holes into the hand, causing it to vanish. "What's that?" Han Li said with alarm. Mu Qing eventually turned her head and explained, "That is a monstrous fish in the infernal river. It is as slender as a needle and lives on the water's surface. It can launch flying attacks tirelessly and can't be underestimated. However, they are only the most minor dangers inside the infernal river. So long as you protect yourself with spiritual light, with enough cultivation, you will be able to enter the water. The other danger is if a school of fish launches a continuous attack on you. You would have to kill them all." When Han Li heard this, he felt enlightened. At that moment, something sounded from the back of the passage. Han Li turned his head and saw 2 crimson-robed men standing on the shoulders of the purple blood puppet. The white-haired beauty was also there, accompanied by 8 black figures, Yuan Yao and Yan Li. Afterwards, seemingly endless armies of demons, puppets, and yin-armored ghosts followed them. In the blink of an eye, the armies occupied most of the air in the passage, floating in dense numbers in various places. One of the crimson-robed men directly flew over to Han Li and company. As for the other crimson-robed man, he loudly shouted, "Brother Liu Zhu, how is it? Have the infernal river's restrictions changed at all?" "None. It's exactly the same as we last entered." Liu Zhu withdrew his gaze from the water and turned around. "That is to say, we'll have to do the same thing to get rid of the restriction," a crimson-robed man sullenly said. The white-haired beauty flew over and confidently said, "That is so. However, this time we made more preparations. It won't be as harmful as the last time." Liu Zhu turned to look at Han Li and said emotionlessly, "Yes. The most important point is that we join hands to destroy the restriction and separate the river. As for other dangers, you don't need to take them to heart. All right, let's prepare. Fellow Taoist Han, when the time comes, release you divine lightning and aid us in dissolving the devilish qi that scatters from the water. So long as the devilish qi is gone, we'll be able to part the water without a problem." Han Li bowed and calmly said, "Seniors, don't worry. My lightning wield technique has been well practiced. I definitely won't interfere with this matter." Hey, that's reassuring," a crimson-robed heartily laughed. The others nodded. Soon after, the 4 demon monarchs waved their hands and suddenly high-grade demons flocked out, taking out strange tools to establish a spell formation. 8 black figures and a dozen black metal-attributed puppets gathered together and prepared something. As for Han Li, as he floated in mid-air, he shook his sleeve. Suddenly, 8 small azure flags circled in the air as azure sparks flashed from them, creating a lightning-attributed spell formation around him. At his side, the golden ape looked at Han Li's actions and couldn't help but alarmedly ask, "Fellow Taoist Han, what are you doing?" Han Li casually answered, "Nothing. This is a supplementary spell formation that I researched. Not only will it stabilize the lightning wield technique, but it will also amplify its might." After Han Li found out that the divine Devilbane lightning could backlash on him when using grand techniques, he felt greatly apprehensive and put in much effort into resolving this. This small spell formation was such a method he researched during his time in seclusion. He used lightning talismans to condense the formation flags and allow them to absorb lightning. Then, when placed in his 8-gate lightning draw formation, it would also amplify its strength. If the lightning truly backlashed during the technique, he could use the spell formation to ward off the lightning, buying him time to escape the formation and escape injury. Of course, Han Li could only test if it was truly effective if the backlash truly happened. Nevertheless, Han Li felt more at ease using the lightning wield technique inside the formation. As for the amplification effect, it was only an excuse. When the ape heard Han Li's explanation, he nodded and said nothing else. Mu Qing and the others glanced at it, but they weren't able to see anything odd about it. After all, the strange part about the formation was its flags, which consisted of lightning talismans. However, Han Li had spent painstaking effort to craft them, so even the vastly powerful demon monarchs weren't able to see through them. The other demons had been drilled before, and in the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the huge formation was placed down in mid-air. The huge spell formation used tens of various styled tools, including bowl-thick black plates, ruler's rings, the crystals and the other strange objects, but scattered about these items still released an astonishing aura and seamlessly fused into a single body. At the heart of the formation, Liu Zhu and Mu Qing stood side by side. The other 8 black figures stood in formation, each one of them standing on each other's shoulders like a human ladder. The white-haired beauty stood in front of the black figures and wore a calm expression. By a crimson-robed man, the purple blood puppet expanded, rising over 100 times in size. A dozen metal-attributed puppets gathered together, condensing into a 100-meter-tall iron puppet. The huge blades in its hands glinted brightly.